So here we are today interviewing Lucien Mayer himself. So first off, Lucien, how old are you?
I will be 43 in 2 days. Ouch.
And how long have you been writing?
Initially I started writing when I was about 16 or 17, and I wrote till I was about 22 or 23. And then I stopped and I picked it back up when I was 40, and now I'm 43.
What got you into bikes in the first place?
Well, I was always into BMX. I grew up on pedal bikes, every type of pedal bike, mountain bikes, 10 speeds, everything. And then when we moved out here, it was kind of a rural community, and gas was getting kind of up in price at the time. It was like $1. But my father said, hey, a motorcycle would be a more economical way to get around. And so we found this old KZ400, and that's what I started on.
So what do you think keeps drawing you back to bikes?
It's hard to describe. I think a lot of people have tried to describe it. There was one book I read that describes it as the lazy man's zen, where it's kind of a meditative state that you get into when you're on a motorcycle. And I think kind of over the years I've tried to analyze it for my own writing and tried to describe it. It's very difficult to describe, but it's kind of a focus, like a hyper focus that allows you to kind of drop away everything else. Because you have to concentrate on the road 100%, you just don't have the time to kind of invest in anything else. And I think that kind of gives you a liberation and a freedom that most people don't see very often.
I remember we were 17, here trying to be a beauty queen, sitting here in the campfire's glow. Well, tell me, where did my glory days go? Looking back now, those days are past. Don't I know it, good things never last. It's been so long, baby, where have you been? Look what we made out of all of this shit. Won't you be my baby tonight? You won't get pushed around.
I know in a lot of your videos you mention your writing. When did you become a storyteller?
When I was very young. I remember, well, at least wanting to become one. The journey is a long one, I suppose. But my mother took me to the Shakespeare Festival in Cedar City, and we went to a production of The Tempest. And in it, I was pretty young. I was like 8 or 7 or something like that. My mother kind of said, you know, you might not understand the language in this, and just try to enjoy it. And so I kind of went in there with a very open mind. Well, that show, not only did I understand it, but it really hit chords for me. And so when I came out at intermission, I was asking all sorts of questions, and my mother realized that I kind of understood it. And I think at that point is when I realized what a power that a storyteller has. And that is probably the start of that journey of wanting to become that storyteller.
But what draws you back to telling stories over and over again and never giving up?
That's a hard question, because it can be extremely painful. In all the things in my life, it's one of the more painful things that I do. And I do keep kind of going back to it over and over and over and over. I think that writing is something that I've looked at doing for so long, and admired people that do it successfully, like Poe and Hemingway and Shakespeare, and these people that I admire they create entire worlds, but in those worlds you learn lessons. You can get life experience from somebody else, and I think I love life because of the experiences in it. I love doing new things. My family loves to travel. We love to, ride motorcycles, obviously, but we've got jet skis. We love to camp. We love to travel. We just have a wide variety of things we like to do, because adventure is what is always on our plate. And I think that writing allows you to lend that adventure and those lessons, which are so important in life, you can lend across without having to have the experience, without having to take that trip or have to go, you get a little piece of it, not all of it, but you get a little piece of it. And it certainly writing lets you explore the world in a way that one day you can really go to explore the spots that, you've fallen in love with in the literature that you write, or in the literature that you read. So I've always kind of wanted to inspire that, I guess. I've always wanted to, I want to write books that resonate throughout time. That's the goal anyway.
Don't you know I want to put up a fight? Can you see me now? Tell me everything can be alright. Won't you be my baby? Hear my songs on the radio. We went so fast, but you took it so slow.
So I see there behind you, you got lots of tools and whatnot, and I know you have a special name for it. What's the name, and tell us a little bit about it.
This is the lab. This is basically where ELF kind of came to be.
Why do you call it the lab?
The lab? It's just because it's mad science that goes on in here. Stuff that really shouldn't work within the realm of physics, but sometimes tends to.
So I hear that your wife rebuilt the carbs on hers. How do you feel about women working on bikes?
I think that women have a great deal of patience that men don't have. And I think that lends extremely well to the art of riding a motorcycle and to working on a motorcycle. When my wife jumped into the carburetors, you could see that there was some trepidation at first. She didn't really understand, but the minute that she started to kind of figure out the system of the carburetors and how it worked, you saw that kind of light bulb come on in her head, and she knew exactly what needed to be done. She knew exactly how to take it from A to Z. I didn't really even have to tell her that. I just had to show her how it worked one time, and then she kind of figured out where all the problems were, and she sorted all that out. And it's that patience, because I would have sworn at the thing and thrown it across the garage 4 or 5 times in the same time that she just fixed it. And I think that women have that patience in their writing too. I don't think that they twist the throttle with their ego as much as guys do. So I really admire women who ride, but I also admire women who work on motorcycles and anything really. It's experience, right? Life is all about adventure, and working on a motorcycle or working on a car can be somewhat of an adventure too, and it can lead to a huge feeling of accomplishment when you say swap out the drums of your brakes, or swap out a radiator or something like that. It kind of leads you to know that every job is something we can all do. So I really encourage it.
Tell me, when did you finally see all the things that just couldn't be? Looking back now, it's in the past. I spent too much of it living fast. Tell me where.
So I know you're sitting on your bike there, so tell us a little bit about your bike.
Well, ELF is quite the unique case.
Now, why do you call it ELF?
Well, ELF is Dutch for 11, and so I'll kind of explain it. I bought ELF as a 1981 KZ 1000, which was the same bike that Mad Max rode and the same bike that Poncherelli and the Chips rode. They're the old police bike. And I've always loved this bike. In fact, when I was 20, I owned a KZ 1000. It was a 78 or 79. So when I went back around to motorcycles, it kind of just leaned this way. I kept looking at these bikes. So I bought this bike, and it had a motor in it. Actually, this one up here, well, pieces of this one. And I rode it about 1,600 miles that first season, and I blew out a piston. And so I had to kind of make a decision, and so I was kind of planning to go, okay, well, I'll just go buy a new bike. But my buddy kind of convinced me, hey, you went and looked at all the bikes and you wound up buying the same bike that you had when you were a kid anyway. So maybe you just ought to rebuild this one. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And then I started doing research on the internet and finding all sorts of things that you could do with this motor. And so then I started kind of coming up with a scheme, and as you can see, there was parts all the way down to the core. I'll show a picture of the parts. And basically we rebuilt it from the ground up. But what wound up happening is that this cylinder jug and pistons are from an 84 GPZ 1100cc motorcycle. And then the top is from 181 KZ 1000, and the lower end is from a different 81 KZ 1000, and the crankshaft is from unknown. And that alternator is actually from a very later model Kawasaki where
Now you've grown out of all of these tears.
basically from the ground up it's been rebuilt. There's not one bolt in this bike I don't think I've taken out at one point or another. So.
Well, Lucien, I really want to thank you for taking your time out and doing an interview with me today. One last
Thank you
thing.
for doing the interview, you know. It's like I asked him to set this all up.
So one last thing before we go. Can you tell us what are the most important things in your life besides bikes?
Love. I mean, my family, my wife, and my kids. If it weren't for my family, there wouldn't be a me. There's just no way around that fact. And it scares me every single day how much I love my kids and my wife, and how attached I am. Because there was always a time when I was very young where I didn't want to be attached to anybody, and I still I push people away. But my family is the one people that always push back, and they won't ever let me go. So for that, they're the most important thing. And then nature. I think that if you aren't in touch with the outside world, if you are just in computers, and I'm an IT guy, I love computers, I'm a total geek, but I think that if you don't get in touch with the outside world, you miss a great part of your soul. And there's things in nature that we'll never accomplish as a human race. And it's so grandiose and amazing that it just takes your breath away. And if you don't get that feeling at least a couple times a year, I really highly suggest it, because I think that I call it charging my soul. And I think that that's one of the more important things that I do in my life to stave off my depression and stave off a lot of the things that I deal with, is being inside the natural world, whether that's motorcycle riding or jet skiing or camping or travel. It puts you in that scape where you can talk to the clouds and you can hear what they say, and I think that's really important in life too.
Good. Well, thank you, Lucien, again.
And here I am.